Hey guys, Daryl Russell here. Welcome back to another episode of the Lion Zeal Show. In this episode, we're sitting down with Bradley Benner and we're discussing the future of SEO and why he believes that heavily relies on the semantic web and why it's becoming increasingly important today and only more so in the future. So what we're going to talk about in this episode is what he believes is the semantic web, why this is becoming really important, obviously, but more than that, you're going to go specifically into engagement and why you need to focus on engagement as a metric more so than links. So right now he believes links are still very important, I agree with that, but he believes that engagement is becoming increasingly important, similar to what we already know in terms of like getting traffic on your PBNs, increases the effectiveness of the link. No matter what the metrics are, just having more traffic increases the effectiveness of the link. And he believes that engagement, like traffic and stuff like that, is becoming increasingly important and it's going to become basically the future of SEO. Based on his testing and obviously his predictions, nobody knows exactly what Google are going to do. This is a very advanced episode, we get into very advanced topics. We do kind of expand a little bit for beginners, but it goes pretty quick and pretty advanced because we don't have that much time. So if you're an absolute beginner, some of this may get lost on you, but don't worry about it. We do try and explain it for beginners, and there's a lot of content in here. So even if you're a beginner, you're going to get some nuggets out of this, and especially if you're intermediate to advanced, you're going to get some great ideas here to basically scale what you're already doing now and maybe improve it some ways and build up more engagement. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get straight into it. Hey man, thank you for joining me on the show. It's very cool to have you here. For anyone that doesn't know you yet, do you want to do a little intro and just introduce who you are, what it is you do?
Sure, my name is Bradley Benner. I've been doing SEO and digital marketing since 2010. I got my start with lead gen, so I was basically doing local lead gen for local businesses and selling leads. And then in 2012, I opened up an agency to where I could provide services. And then in around 2013, about a year later, I actually started a mastermind group with some international partners called Semantic Mastery. That's what we named it, and we actually went public with it in 2014. And when I mean public, it was a small private mastermind. And in 2014, we started teaching SEO and digital marketing, and that's kind of where we are today. I still run my lead gen business, my digital marketing agency, although I've been winding that down because I'm doing more and more coaching now than anything. But yeah, we have Semantic Mastery, and now the next thing was SERP Space, which is our marketplace, our done-for-you services marketplace, and we're kind of going full steam ahead with that right now.
Interesting, man. Hey, I'm really curious because you took the opposite approach to what I see most people do. And you went from doing lead gen to running an agency. And I see most people start with an agency and like, screw this, I don't want clients, let me do lead gen instead. You did the opposite. What made you go into an agency from lead gen?
It's a great question. Interestingly, I started in the lead gen business because I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't really capable of approaching businesses and pitching them my services when I had no track record, no history. And so originally I tried doing services, like providing services to local businesses, but I wasn't gaining any traction. I wasn't able to land any clients, and it's because I was inexperienced, and obviously that came through with my pitching of my services, you know, and all that. So I switched and went to doing lead gen just so I could prove to myself that I knew that I could rank properties and start generating leads for businesses. And so I really got, and I started in the construction industry. I've got a background in electrical contracting, so I'm familiar with working with service contractors a lot. And so I just chose that niche, or that industry, you know, the contractor industries, because I'm familiar with that. And so I started building and ranking WordPress sites and doing some Maps SEO and stuff like that when in the contractor industry, and until I started building up a portfolio of sites, of digital assets, in other words. What happened was, I live in Virginia in the United States, and so our winters are bad enough. They're not terrible, but they're bad enough to where the home construction and services industry slows down considerably for about 3 to 4 months every year. And so after about 2 years of running my lead gen business, but seeing my income decline significantly during the winter, I decided that I wanted, and so in March of 2012, after my second winter of having my revenue decline during that time period, I said, well, I'm going to open up an agency and provide services to local businesses as well, so that I can start to build a more reliable recurring revenue, if that makes sense. And so that's really
Absolutely.
why I did it. But you're absolutely right, Daryl, in that after opening an agency and starting to deal with clients, it was just about a year or two before I realized I didn't want to deal with clients anymore.
It's funny. I think everyone, after a while, a year or two is even pretty long. A lot of people come to that realization very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah,
still
I mean,
running the agency though today? You still
I
have some
do.
clients?
I do. At the height of my agency, I had about 32 clients.
Okay.
But right now I've only got 12, and it's because I've seriously reduced my client base, and really only kept a handful of the clients that I've had now since 2012. Most of the clients that I still have I've had for several years, and because of that, they're more hands off now than, as you guys know, SEO a lot of times is more front end work. It's like once you get ranked, it's easier to maintain the rankings than it is to get ranked to begin with. And so, the clients that I still currently have are clients that most all the work's been done, and it's just a matter of, keeping the foot on the gas and just maintaining their rankings. And so it's not a whole lot of work for me, and my teams really take care of all that stuff now. So there's really no reason to completely drop them.
Fair enough. When you went from, say, 32 down to, what do you say, 12 now, was that a very deliberate, like, hey, we're not going to work together anymore, like firing them? Or was it just kind of slowly backing off how much you would communicate with them and they just dropped off?
It was a mix of both.
Okay.
It was a mix of both. Some of them were, kind of on the fence, clients anyways, that were kind of a pain in the ass to deal with, and they were constantly, and I'll be honest with you, because of my background with the home construction industry, I primarily have dealt with just contractors in that kind of industry for both lead gen and for my marketing agency. I do have clients in other industries, but the vast majority of them has always been like home construction type stuff. And those a lot of the companies I've dealt with are smaller, so they're more like mom and pop shops. My average client value is about $800 a month, and I know that's low for a lot of like what SEO people talk about. A lot of SEOs talk about $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, and that's great. That might be dealing with bigger clients, but I was dealing with a lot of like smaller mom and pop shops because me, as a former electrical contractor, I was one of those types of guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to provide kind of like level the playing field for the smaller groups, the smaller companies, to be able to compete with their larger competitors. Yeah. And so that's I specifically niched down into like dealing with smaller companies. And in retrospect, in hindsight, looking back, that wasn't the smartest thing to do. As a lot of your audience probably know, dealing with those kind of clients they're usually more needy. They want more hand-holding. They want to ask more questions. I found that with the higher paying clients, they're also higher quality clients. They'll typically leave you 100%. The hell alone to let you do your work.
Yeah.
So
hindsight.
So again, a lot of the clients that I've let go were ones that were, weren't paying me enough for the amount of headache that they were causing, and I just contacted them and said, look, I'm switching directions. I'm going more towards the coaching and consulting, and I would give them an opportunity to find another service provider, or I would recommend to them to like one of our coaching students and say, hey, look, I've got a client. Would you mind taking over the project for me? That kind of stuff. So it's kind of been a mix of both. Some of them were just ones that fell off the radar. Others were ones that I literally said, we're just not going to work together anymore because I'm switching routes. So.
Okay, fair enough. And back to the lead gen stuff. When did you say you got started again? 2010?
Yeah, 2010.
What was the ranking like back then? Like, what sort of process? Easy.
It was a lot easier than it is now. I started. I was lucky enough to where when I first started in the digital or in SEO, I really tried to learn affiliate marketing, but I couldn't gain any traction at all, and so I switched over to start testing local, and like instantly I was able to and this was way back in 2010. So buying an exact match domain almost guaranteed first page rankings. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like. And so I did. I started going after exact match domains for like service plus city. And WordPress sites and just slapping some content up. And I did a little bit of YouTube marketing, but not much. It wasn't until about a year later that I really got into doing a lot of YouTube stuff. But it was really simple. Just it was literally put up a exact match domain. You could keyword stuff the hell out of it, like Like you could have the exact match domain, then the exact same match keyword as the page URL, right? So you'd have exact match keyword plus exact match keyword, and then
like plumberslondon.co.uk/plumberslondon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it
That's
would be
insane.
like, like carpet cleaning culpepper.com/carpet cleaning Culpeper. And it was like, and then you would take the images and you'd stuff the keyword in the file name, the alt text, the metadata of the images.
Nice.
I'd even go into the WordPress database and cPanel, and I'd change the images folder URL to where it would say the keyword in the images folder. So the main keyword. So every image in the file URL for the image would contain a keyword as well. So it was just really a way of how many times can we squeeze the keyword into the site, and that's what would rank it.
It's crazy. It's really cool. What's really fascinating is we look back now and say how easy it was back then, and we're all saying how difficult it is today. But I imagine in like 7 years time from today, people are like, oh, I wish I was around in 2017 when it was so easy, just point some PBNs and whatever strategy you use today.
Yeah.
Well,
I think one of the interesting things is that from our experience at Semantic Mastery and a lot of the testing and stuff that we do is that more and more SEO signals are coming from engagement. So so like user behavior, and I know why. It's because Google can't. It's not that it can't, but it's a lot more difficult to determine spam signals than it is like backlinks, for example, spam backlinks. And so for example, like getting engagement, having engagement from profile. I mean, we're SEO, so we create fake profiles all the time and fake Web 2.0 accounts for backlink purposes and all these different kinds of things, and that's well and good. It still does work to a degree, for backlinking purposes and stuff like that. But my thought has always been like, and it has been for the last couple of years, is like when you create what I call an orphaned account. So let's say you go out and create a Web 2 account for a backlink, so that you can post some content and build some backlinks or whatever. A lot of the times that profile, that Web 2 profile, is going to be orphaned, what I call an orphaned account. So it's standalone. It's not really connected to anything else on the web. There's no identity validation. Sure. There's no browsing history and cookie history and a profile, like a persona like profile, or what they call an avatar, right? An avatar of that profile. And so a link from that isn't necessarily going to be counted or given nearly as much weight as perhaps a link from another profile that is well connected. It's an validated identity. It's got a history of like an avatar profile history of searching for and engaging with content in that topic or whatever. Sure. And so again, when it comes to, and I can see why Google is now moving more towards user metrics as a ranking factor, and a significant ranking factor. And so, like you just mentioned, Daryl, I look back now 7 years ago and think about how easy it was, and how things are so much difficult now. And like you said, 7 years from now, we're going to be thinking the same thing. And you're probably right, because we still can use links and stuff right now to help rank. And Absolutely. I think going in the future that they're eventually going to be completely deprecated, in my opinion.
Really? So. Can you expand more on why? Just because it's easy to spam?
Yeah, because it's so easy to spam, and it's much more difficult to fake user engagement signals from real bona fide users, and that's the whole key. And so, like, something we're testing is building out profiles now that have developed their own histories. Like, for example, we create profiles and we'll like assign a particular IP, a proxy, and then we'll use that same account over and over again without clearing cache and cookies and history and all that kind of stuff, so that it's basically building a footprint, and also getting in that profile is now engaged on, like, for example, Google local guides or Yelp super reviewers and things like that. So we start to build these profiles up, and these profiles become digital assets in themselves, because they can help to provide backlinks and social signals and engagement signals on other properties. So it's not about developing a web property so much anymore. I mean, that's still part of it. What I'm saying is we're working on developing profiles now. Instead of specific web properties, we develop the profiles that then we use to actually perform user engagements on the web assets that we want to rank. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, so rather than just creating I don't know, say a Twitter or Web 2.0 or something, and just adding a link and then being done with it, closing it, and never going on again. Instead, you're going out there and actually using it as a real profile. You're building like a persona around it. You're tweeting other things. You're reaching out to other sites and whatnot. Like, you're building up as a legit person.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And building an actual relevant following so that those profiles can also generate traffic. You know, that's the whole point. It's you know, and it's difficult, and I think that's why we're trying to develop a way to automate building out these profiles as much as possible, because I think that's really where the bulk of, like, I think the biggest bang for your buck will be from user engagement signals. I mean, again, links aren't going away anytime soon. They're still very much a part of the algorithm, and they shall be for some time in the future. But I can see, I mean, it's pretty apparent that they're starting, Google's starting to place less overall significance on links and more overall significance on things like user metrics, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
so, and click-through rate.
Already are finding that traffic on their PBNs is massively increasing the effectiveness of the link.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so here's the thing, you know, there's some traffic spoofing, you know, programs, applications out there that will send, you know, bot traffic through various IPs, and they'll switch up the user agents and the browsers and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of that's still bot traffic. So again, even though that still works, like you know, there's several different of those types of, like, what I call CT spam or click-through spam.
Yeah.
So CT spam applications, there's a lot of them out there, but a lot of them are, it's still effective to a point, but it's not as nearly as effective as it would be if they were true click-throughs from real profiles. And that's what I'm talking about is, I mean, I still use the hell out of, like, some of these CT spam apps, the way that I use them is for, like, social referral traffic. So in other words, instead of, like, having the bot go search for a keyword and then find the URL that you designate you want it to click on, and then click on and then stay time on site for however many long, and maybe view some internal pages and all that. Again, that's well and good. It still provides a traffic signal. However, that traffic, the bot, does it have a history? Does it have, you know, and if it does have a history, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a really random history because it's been
and some of the crappy ones are like commercial, like server IPs and stuff as well. Exactly.
And so my point is like those kind of, there's some benefit to it, there's no doubt, but a much bigger benefit would be to have a click through from one of those profiles that have a relevant history and you know, that kind of stuff. And so you know, again, I use those kind of bots for that kind of stuff, but I think there's are going to be better, more effective ways to do it. And that's what we're seeing more and more now with our own testing and stuff, is like you said, like take a PBN, for example. If you send real relevant traffic through that PBN link, that link now becomes, you know, exponentially more valuable than it did if it was just sitting out there, you know?
Yeah. So how do you think that's going to play out for, like, us? Like, are we going to have these advanced bots that automatically do this stuff, or are we going to have to just generally try and build up legit traffic to our profiles and Web 2.0s and PBNs? Or how do you think that's going to affect us?
Well, as SEOs, you know, we're always going to find ways to automate and spam it.
For sure.
Yeah, we're going to find ways to spam it, just as sure as the sun is going to rise and set today, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what we're trying to do now is develop a way to automate building up those persona profiles, and then using things like iMacros, for example. So it's not 100% automated, it's semi-automated. In other words, we still are, like, we're working on training virtual assistants, for example, to go in and run iMacro programs. So they still have to, you know, log in, or you know, open up the browsing window and hit an iMacro script and let it run, and then come back and maybe hit another script and that kind of stuff. So, but it's still, in my opinion, eventually it could probably be fully automated, I'm sure. We just haven't reached that point yet. So.
Sure. So what sort of signals are you trying to build up now that you think increase that, like, help you increase rankings, or at least build up more trust enough and help you rank easier?
Well, we are big believers in content marketing as part of it. You know, we have our Syndication Academy, which is our flagship product. Really teaches people how to build syndication networks for content from their blog, for example, or YouTube, using Web2 and social media properties. And we don't. So, you know, between our syndication networks, where we talk about building the branded ring. So the syndication network is essentially a tier 1 set of properties around the money site, for example, that are all branded. So they're consistent with, and it's not about, as SEOs, we always try to hide our footprints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This isn't hiding your footprint. You're claiming your footprint. You're saying, hey, this is us on all these other properties, right?
Sure.
This is an extension of our brand. And so therefore, whenever we publish content to the blog, it syndicates out, provides a backlink back. And those are powerful brand signals. And that's what, again, through what we're seeing is Google is rewarding brands and authority more and more. And so if we can, and remember, we're in the semantic web, and that's when, Web 3.0, and as it continues to evolve, and that's why the semantic web is helping to eliminate the need for backlinks, or at least reduce the needs for backlinks, because of the way that it validates entities and identities, both entities and identities. And so, when we build the syndication networks around our web properties, our assets, it's intentionally to claim our footprint and to say, hey, this is us everywhere else. It's basically telling Google that, we're not orphaned accounts, we're not trying to hide anything. Yeah. We're trying to tell you that this is us, and we have a presence in all these locations. So between building up those persona, or those profiles, whether it's a brand, like a corporate brand or a personal brand or whatever, it doesn't make a difference. And then also building up the profiles that, like the ancillary or supporting profiles, like what we were talking about with setting up additional profiles that are relevant as far as like topical relevancy and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then sending traffic from them through the branded properties to the money site. That's what we find to be really, really effective right now. So
interesting.
We've been doing a lot of content marketing stuff and really working on building brands of any digital assets. And remember, guys, a brand can be just a website, right?
Yeah.
A website can be its own brand. And so we really focus on building the brands right now more than anything. And we find that that has a tendency to help rank much faster than if you were just like going after like straight off-page SEO and that kind of stuff, with more links and things. So
interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So
okay. Are
you building links like PBN links or anything on top of that, or is it purely setting this stuff up and content marketing?
Well, to be honest, I do some inbound link building, not nearly as much as I used to, because we found we don't have to. Still use them sometimes. If it's particularly competitive stuff, then yes, absolutely we'll use links. I still very rarely link actually directly to the money site anymore, because I like to have as much control as possible over any inbound links coming to my site. Okay. That I build. In other words, if I'm going to go order or build a link somewhere, I want to be able to have control over it after the fact. So I try to build stuff directly to like the tier 1 properties instead. Yeah. The branded properties, and they're extensions of the brand, so a lot of that passes through anyways. But as far as like, I used to run a large PBN network, several thousand sites, but I've actually let most of all those expire over the last year because we've gotten away from doing it. We do the Drive Stack stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with RYS Academy and Google Drive Stacks. I'm sure you are. That works incredibly well, by the way.
Do you want to explain the basics for anyone that doesn't know?
Using Google Drive as a link building tool, and it's a way to also help to validate an entity. Very, very powerful, guys. If you take Google Drive properties and you set them to public, they're indexable, and you can actually push link equity through Drive Stack or Drive properties. All of them. Sheets, docs, drawings, maps, presentations, all of those will pass juice. And it's really, really powerful because, guys, you're now siphoning off of Google's own domain. And so it's really powerful what you can do with those. And so, again, we're doing that. There's pretty much a standard operating procedure for, like, any digital asset that we're launching or taking over, like if it's an existing property and we're starting to work on it. Like, we do the syndication network right off the bat, and then the Drive Stack right off the bat. Then we set up the content marketing schedule, because that's one of the most critical components of having the whole syndication network work correctly. Yeah. And then we do some press releases and then a bunch of inbound links, link building to the network properties, not to the money site, to boost it. So, we kind of have like this whole process that we use to launch new assets that just works really well. So
it's really cool. Interesting. Do you think this is more time efficient or faster to implement than like the old school, like go out there and set up a PBN and add all the links to it?
Well, I don't know that it's faster. It very well may not be. I think probably the more traditional route would be faster. But what I'm trying to always think about longevity, like
Absolutely,
down the road. And so we've been kind of focusing more on semantic web optimization than traditional off-page SEO stuff, if that makes sense, for like the last year and a half or so. And so we've gotten more, like I said, and you know, I don't work for Google. I can't predict what the hell Google's going to do tomorrow. So
I wish you could.
We've been, yeah, I mean, none of us can. I wish we could, but you know, we've been trying to use like educated guesses on how we think it's going to evolve.
And testing it, I presume.
Yeah, and we test everything and we've seen good results with our methodology, and that's why it continues to evolve and go more towards the semantic web optimization than traditional SEO. But you know, again, it really is just a wild ass guess on our part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's an educated guess, but it's still just a guess because we don't work for Google. So to answer your question, is it any faster? Probably not, but I'm hoping that it has. You know, I think the traditional route of just building PBN and links and stuff, I think that is slowly fading, and I don't want assets that I work on today to not be generating revenue a year down the road, if that makes sense.
Sure, it's understandable. I'm curious then, you keep talking about like semantic web and stuff. What was your, like, why did you name it after like semantic mastery, like your brand semantic mastery, and what's your reasoning behind like thinking about semantic web so much?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, when we started our little mastermind before we started, like, you know, went public with products and stuff like that, we were all really interested in the semantic web and how to start learning how to optimize for it, because we knew it was coming, because this was back in 2013, excuse me, when it was really like infancy stage. You know, semantic web technology has been around for a while, but Google didn't adopt it at all, and it still isn't fully adopted, but it's being integrated more and more. You know, Hummingbird was really the first iteration of that I'm aware of, and then RankBrain is an extension of that as well. But my point is that we were looking at we were trying to futurecast, trying to think what was going to be coming down the pipeline, and so this was back in 2013 when we formed. Yeah, exactly. And so we called it Semantic Mastery because our goal was to become masters at optimizing for the semantic web. And it's been a lot slower of a progression as far as Google's adoption of semantic technologies. But we're seeing it's happening, but it's just happening slower than what we had assumed.
Okay. And going back to something you said earlier, again, just for like people that are more beginner level, not quite understanding, you talk about setting up like all the branded tier and talk about syndication. How exactly do you syndicate that for like a little bit for beginners here?
No problem. Very, very simply, there's a great application. I'm sure you guys are aware of this. It's called IFTTT, excuse me, which is ifttt.com. It's if this then that is what it stands for. It's a free application, guys. Well, they have paid versions now, but essentially it's like a trigger and action type application. So you can go in and you can connect your RSS feed, let's say from your main money site. Doesn't have to be WordPress, as long as it has an RSS feed. You can use that as a trigger. And then you can connect, let's say, Blogger or Tumblr or WordPress or Digo, for example. You can connect Google Drive. You can connect various Web 2, social media, cloud storage properties, all bookmarking sites. And then, so essentially, what IFTTT will do is it will scan your RSS feed and pull it and see if there's any new posts. And if it sees a new post from the last time it checked it, then it will trigger based upon the recipes, or what they call applets now, that you set up inside of IFTTT. And you can say, like, okay, if new RSS feed item is detected, then post republish to Blogger or republish to Tumblr or whatever. And so it's a very, very simple strategy that I learned, actually, believe it or not, I actually learned that back in 2011 from a WSO. I don't know if you remember those. You remember WSOs?
Yeah, I think people still do them.
Yeah, they're. I see. I haven't been on them forever, but Warrior Special Offers, and it was like a $7 PDF by this dude named David Cossack, or David Koss, I think it was. His nickname was Cossack. Anyways, it was a $7 PDF, and it introduced me to IFTTT and how to use it to set up these little recipes for syndicating content, which would help to rank. And I can't believe it, because that really ended up. I started testing it and using it back in 2011, and it worked like gangbusters. And I've been using it ever since. And it really is the foundation of all SEO work that I do now. I always start with a syndication network based upon IFTTT training, and then just build from there. And it's still very, very effective. In fact, it's more. It's not easier to rank now, but the networks are more effective now because of the semantic web integration. Whereas back in 2010, or 2011 or whatever, that didn't exist. So having a branded network of properties around a money site or a YouTube channel, it was only the SEO benefit. It had nothing to do with the branding or entity validation. It was specifically for just basically the backlinks.
Yeah.
But it has evolved so much more now to where actually the backlinks are initially less effective from the networks than the branding is, in other words. But over time, with consistent action and blogging continuously, and that's why content marketing is so critical to it, you start to theme the network based upon the content, and over time the relevancy and authority of the network itself rises. And once it does, it obviously ultimately helps your digital asset, your trigger point, to become to rise in the SERPs as well. So
cool, man. So another beginner question, because I'm asked this all the time. When you post, say, a blog post on your blog and it syndicates to blogger.com or whatever your profiles are you set up, is that duplicate content, or does it even matter?
No. Duplicate content only matters when it's on the same domain. That's when it will cause issues. But the other part of this is it's not duplicate content because all you're doing is sharing content to your own branded profile. So in other words, let's say it's joesplumbing.com, and I always use contractors as examples because that's what I primarily work with. Let's say it's joesplumbing.com, and he's got all his network properties around his money site that are all branded for Joe's Plumbing. They've got the same graphics. Everything is consistent across there. Well, they're his social media properties. So if he posts a blog post, what's Joe going to do? He's going to go share it on Facebook and share it on Twitter and maybe repost it to his blog if he has it. And that's completely logical. It's normal. It's it's even what like the biggest most trafficked websites do. They post to their blogs and then or their websites, and then they get shared out across social media.
Absolutely.
So number one, it's just sharing your content to your own branded profiles. Where it gets tricky is if you're just building like persona-based syndication networks specifically for backlinking purposes that you're going to syndicate content. Now that can get tricky because then you can create a footprint. But when you are using a footprint, when you're syndicating your own branded network, you're not trying to hide a footprint.
Yeah.
Again, you're saying this is my content. I published it here, but I want to put it on all these other places so more people can see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then part of that is when you syndicate the content. Anybody that's been through any formal education knows that when you are citing a source, when you're referencing somebody else's content or material, you're supposed to provide attribution, right? You're supposed to cite the source where you got the content. So part of the process of setting up these syndication networks, which are 100% automated once they're set up, is making sure that you have an attribution link in each one of your posts so that when it syndicates onto, let's say, Blogger or Tumblr, somewhere in the post, if not the top or the bottom, but somewhere in the post, it says, this post was originally published on, and it links back to the original source. And that once that's done, that eliminates any potential duplicate content issues because you're citing the source. You're saying, hey, this is republished from over here, and you point to the source.
Absolutely. 100% agree. So one thing you kind of mentioned there that I'm kind of curious about is, do you do like syndication network stacking or something where you have like multiple syndication networks and it like from that main network it goes to other ones and whatnot?
Absolutely. That works better you can do it for blog syndication as well, and we'll talk about that in a second, but for YouTube syndication, for video syndication, it works incredibly well because there are no footprint issues with YouTube syndication. There are none yet. They're not saying it's not gonna happen at some point, but you can stack as many networks onto a YouTube channel as you want, as many tier 1 networks, you can go out with multi-tiered networks where essentially, YouTube, you upload a video to YouTube or live stream to YouTube, it automatically publishes itself to your tier 1 network. Then you can have tier 1 network properties actually trigger tier 2 network properties. And then you can go out beyond that. And so you can create this daisy chain, this cascading effect. And there are zero footprint issues with YouTube videos, provided there are footprint issues if you import the video description. And that causes footprint issues on some of the blog sites. But if pretty much all you're doing is syndicating an embed, and plus an embed, maybe a link back to the channel or a link back to the YouTube video itself, so the YouTube URL, then that's fine. I've never experienced. I mean, I've run some. We've got some large networks that we use for video syndication that are never had any footprint issues. With blog syndication, I always recommend that you just stick with a single tier 1 branded ring that you're going to syndicate your content to. You can do tiered networks with blog syndication, but again, remember, YouTube can withstand. There's no footprint issues with YouTube because it's Google's code. All you're doing is you're acting as a publisher for Google when you create these networks and you syndicate videos to them, right?
Sure.
You're giving Google more exposure. When it comes to blogs, though, blog syndication, if you start creating a bunch of networks, syndication networks that are like persona-based or whatever, they're not specifically tied to the brand, and you start syndicating your content to it, that's going to create a footprint because there's going to be the same content across there's no duplicate content issues, but it's going to be easily recognizable by the algorithm that this same piece of content is now syndicated to multiple profiles, and it's all the exact same with a link pointing back to the same location. That's going to create, Google's algorithm is smart enough to know that you're doing that specifically to game search results, to manipulate search results. And so that creates footprint issues. Now, so I always recommend for ease of use is to set up just a branded tier 1 ring and use that, and then just boost the hell out of the tier 1 ring. In other words, build links to it, constantly be trying to improve or increase the authority of the tier 1 ring. However, that said, you can use tiered networks on blog syndication, but you have to take certain measures to reduce footprint. You can't eliminate it entirely, but you can reduce it. And one of the ways that you can do that is, let's say, and usually when we talk about tiered network structures, we talk about using 3 of the blog's properties in the tier 1 ring to trigger the second tier ring. And I know this is getting a bit more abstract, but
no, this is cool.
But my point is, like, if you syndicate, if you post a blog post to your blog and it automatically syndicates to your tier 1 network, and let's say you've got Blogger, Tumblr, and WordPress are your 3 blog properties. Well, then you can create another whole network where Blogger is the trigger, and then another whole network where Tumblr is the trigger, and another whole network where WordPress is the trigger. And all this is automated. So all you do is publish content to your blog. Well, now that post is going to syndicate to all the properties tier 1, those 3 blog properties as well. Then it's going to syndicate out to the next ones. All of them are going to have the same content and a link pointing back to the original source, which is your attribution link, right?
Yeah.
So that can create a footprint issue. And why it creates a footprint issue is because the 3 persona-based tier 2 rings or syndication networks are going to be like, John Doe and Jane Smith or whatever, and the third one, Mark Fisher, I don't know, whatever. My point is that now those 3 networks are going to have only content from one source, and it's going to be you know what I mean? So it's very apparent that they were set up specifically only to manipulate search results, to provide backlinks or whatever. So the way that you can mitigate that, or to reduce or eliminate, you can't eliminate it entirely, but reduce it, is if you set up at the first tier trigger point. So in other words, at Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress of your tier 1, if you go in and you set up additional RSS triggers from other related content sources. So sources other than your blog. Yeah, sources other than yours. Because then what you do is, if you set up, like, we use Joe's Plumbing again, you could go find like the DIY do-it-yourself network, This Old House, Home and Garden, like all these different home improvement style type related sites, and go grab their RSS feeds and use those as additional triggers at the tier 1 trigger point. Because then those tier 2 networks will start being populated with content on a regular basis that's relevant and related, but from multiple sources. So therefore, whenever you post a post, to your blog and it goes all the way out to tier 2, it's going to be among various other content sources that are all related. So you actually siphon some authority and relevancy, but at the same time you're reducing footprint because now it's buried among a whole lot of other variety of sources, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. So a few questions on that. If you got something else to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say, that you can do that. It's a lot more labor intensive to set up, and more things can break down at that point, because when you're relying on other people's RSS feeds for content, things happen with feeds. They break down. Sometimes feeds will be sometimes you'll see stuff where feeds will overreact and they'll post several times, like for some reason. There are things that can happen when you set up related content triggers on that. And so personally, I've gotten away from doing that because I manage too many damn websites to try to manage and maintain all of those. So I stick with just the branded tier 1 rings. But I know some of our students or members or whatever that are only dealing with the 1 or 2 sites or a handful of sites. They prefer to use the multi-tiered method because it is more effective. It's just more work too.
Absolutely. All right. Interesting. So one of the things you mentioned earlier was powering up that core branded network. How exactly do you do that?
Build links to it. And also send traffic to it. So
what sort of links?
Any kind. Well, see, we develop, obviously, if you know what you're doing, you can use spam tools. Like we use spam tools, Ranker X, or Web 2.0, and Ranker or whatever. And I don't run any of the tools myself. I haven't run a spam tool in years because I hired that out. We've got a link building team now that does it. Our manager, Dedia, he's a ninja. And anyways, so we run GSA and all the different spam tools. But essentially, on tier 1, for the branded networks, you want to treat those as extensions of your brand. So you don't want to just throw kitchen sink spam at them. You don't want to do that. So what we do is we focus on the higher metric properties for contextual links. So they're tier 1 links to our tier 1 properties. So to our money site, they're tier 2 links. But I very rarely ever talk about building links directly to the money site. So when I'm talking about tier 1 links, I'm literally talking about tier 1 links to my network properties. Does that make sense?
Okay, sure.
So they're tier 2 links to the money site, but I very rarely build external links to the money site. So they're tier 1 links to the network properties, which are the branded networks. So from that, what we'll do is for each property in a network, we'll build somewhere between 50 to 125 contextual links, preferably from higher metric properties. And then behind that, so the tier 2 links, we'll throw kitchen sink spam. But it's really just about, because that basically puts any kitchen sink spam three tiers away from our money site. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Are you talking old school spam as well, 10,000 links a day and crazy stuff? Or
yeah, we can go crazy with it. Yep.
Nice.
And it works. I mean, profile forum profile links, all that. I mean, it works. It's really just about powering up those contextual links and getting them indexed and that kind of stuff.
Interesting. Are you not worried that, especially with focusing on the semantic web and being really future-proof and that the spam stuff could be heavily affected in the future?
It could. It absolutely could. But that's why we do everything to the Web 2 properties instead. What we the branded or the syndication network properties, because that acts as an SEO firewall. So in other words, instead, that's why we do everything to there, because in the event that something were to happen where that could cause some problems, we could always go in and modify those network properties to remove links to our money site or whatever. And the point is it acts as, Terry Kyle, he's a great SEO, and he coined the term switchbox SEO. And so switchbox SEO is just always using 301 redirects or whatever, anywhere that you can control the link flow, so that if something negative were to occur, you can open the switch.
Yeah. And
just like that, remove the link flow. And so essentially that's why we use our network properties as SEO firewalls, because that is our buffer zone.
Fair enough. Okay, and another question then on the networks. How do you avoid your profiles and stuff being shut down, taken down, disabled, whatnot?
Provide valuable content. I mean, honestly, that's the name of the game. If you're focusing on providing decent content, then that's the whole trick, and that's why I talked about content marketing being so important, because once the networks are set up, that's automated. It's 100% automated from that point forward. You don't have to do anything. I mean, except you can boost the networks by building links to them and such, and sending traffic signals through them. We mentioned that as well, engagement signals. So that's something else we do to power up those networks, is send traffic signals through them using automated sources like the bots we were talking about. But also now we're working on developing out the profiles and sending real. And I say real because they're real in the eyes of Google, but they're still fake profiles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm saying, the content marketing is so important because it's if you don't have to worry about us as SEOs and people that are providing services and that kind of stuff, we're always thinking about like, how can we improve the rankings? So let's go out and build more links. Let's set up more Web 2s. Let's do all this other stuff. But if you have the infrastructure in place to where all you need to do is focus on providing valuable, relevant, high-quality content, Google's always said, if you build it, people will come. If you build a website with really valuable content, it will naturally get ranked higher in the search engines. We all know that's bullshit, right? We all know that's total crap.
Yeah.
So but the thing is if you have the system in place that will promote your content for you, then you can focus more on providing good content, and then that prevents your network properties from getting terminated. Really, most of the time, network properties get terminated or for two reasons. Number one, dirty IP. In other words, you're using an IP that's been flagged by that particular platform for too many account creations, for example, or whatever. So it's either dirty IP or it's the content is crappy and spammy, or you're posting too often, too frequently, which can also get network properties shut down. But those are usually the only things that cause network properties to get shut down. So if you have branded properties that you're taking care of them, you're treating them with care because they are extensions of a brand, then it's very unlikely that they will get terminated.
That's really interesting. I want to ask about the content, but one quick thing first then. Say you're an agency, or say you're working on a lot of affiliate sites, and you're working on 10, 20 branded profiles for each of these different brands, like creating all the profiles for each of these different brands. Do you use the exact same IP address to create all the accounts, or do you...
Hell no.
No.
Hell no. No, we have our... we have a team that builds all our networks and stuff for us. So we just use various, we get like 100 dedicated proxies per month, for example, and we just rotate through those to build. And then once the networks are created, whoever they're being delivered to, whether it's somebody buying networks from us as one of our students, for example, or if it's a business who's buying a branded network, once we deliver the completed network, we ask them within 72 hours to log in to the main Google profile. The rest of the accounts don't usually matter, but at least the Google profile, to bind it to their IP. And oftentimes, well, not often, it's rare that if you do it within 72 hours of it being created, it oftentimes will not trigger a re-verification. After 72 hours, it often will trigger a re-verification, but all it has to, once it's been bound to their IP, then they can log into it at will, and it doesn't bother it. That won't cause any problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So proxies.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you test them first or anything? Because obviously you can get bad proxies, or bad IPs.
Yeah,
anyway.
We just use like a bulk proxy checker to see if they're blacklisted. But the proxy provider I've been using that for 4 years, and they're really good. It's Easy Proxies. That's who I use, and I use those for our permanent proxies. Our rotating proxies, the ones that we get every month, are from buyproxies.org. Okay. And they're a good provider. So
cool. So you'd say that one of the most important pillars of your strategy today is content, then? Mm-hmm. Are you investing a lot of money? Do you have very high quality writers and everything you outsource to?
Yeah, we outsource most of our content to what we call curators. Instead of as you just said, having high paid writers or whatever, high dollar writers. That's the problem, is finding subject matter experts or topical experts on. So when you go to buy content from one of these content farms, there's a million of them out there. I won't specifically name any of them, but the content farms, it's garbage content, guys. It's garbage. For SEO articles and stuff, fine, but for money site content, don't ever use that crap, because it's awful. I have writers that I go to when I need stuff written about. They're expensive. But what I've done instead was, I started using curated content. And content curation it's so much easier and more effective, and it's more efficient, and it's cheaper. Because the thing is, with content curators, all you need to do to train is teach a curator how to locate and identify good content in a particular niche or industry, and then collect and organize that content. And that's all you have to teach them to do. So they don't have to be subject matter experts. All they need to know how to do is how to or how to gather content and organize it, and then republish it. And so, in other words, for example, like a plumbing blogs. Who the hell wants to read a plumbing blog? You know what I mean?
For sure.
Nobody really, but it's part of our strategy for SEO. Like, nobody wants to read a plumber blog, but we do that anyways because it's part of our SEO strategy. So, for example, I've got a team of curators, and they'll use a feed reader like Feedly, for example, and they'll go find home improvement blogs. I named some of them earlier, like Do It Yourself Network, Home and Garden, Bob Vila, This Old House, these kind of websites, home improvement style websites. They'll pull the RSS feeds, or go locate the RSS feeds. They'll put them into a Feedly or a feed reader of some sort. My team uses Feedly, and then on the days that they're required to blog for that customer or whatever, that client, they'll go to their Feedly. They'll select that category, home improvement or plumbing or whatever. Most of the time, it's a more general category. So and they'll scan all the headlines of the articles that are available that day, and they'll find something that stands out to them. It's a very simple process. I give my curators editorial freedom unless the client has specifics that they want covered. Our curators have basically editorial freedom to go out, find a topic that's relevant for that industry. It doesn't have to be like a plumbing article about, for plumbers. It can be home improvement. That's generally related enough. And they'll go out and they'll find a topic. They'll say, okay, you know what, that seems like it could be a good topic. If I can find another 2 pieces of content to support this idea, then I'll collect those 3 pieces of content, and I'll draft a quick blog post where I open up with what's called commentary. So they basically open up what the subject of the post will be, and then they use the 2 or 3. I always try to get 3 pieces of content that reinforce that idea or that topic, and they republish snippets of those articles with an attribution link linking back to the original source. And the thing about that is they don't have to be subject matter experts. All they have to know how to do is identify content, organize it, and republish it. And so because of that, we can get content that would typically cost me $40 or $50 for an article, for a blog post. If I had a writer write it, I can get a curator to curate for $15. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, and then I charge my customers, my clients, if I pay $15 for a blog post, I charge my clients, $40. And so I make $35 or $25, excuse me, for every blog post that my curator, and it's hands off for me. I don't have to do anything but manage it,
I like it, man. It's a nice strategy.
Yep.
All right, final few questions, then we'll wrap it up. I want to change the topic a little bit. Completely random. So what is something about you that most people that follow you online and stuff don't already know about you?
That's a good question. Wow. I don't know. I used to I had a real estate business. I don't know if everybody knows that. I used to buy and sell houses back in 2003 when the real estate market was really hot in the United States. If you touched real estate, you could make money. Then I got into that whole we buy houses, house flipping business. Where I would go and basically buy houses and flip them. It's called quick turn real estate, and I did really, really well at it. But back then in 2003, anybody that touched real estate did well in it. And I was young at the time. I was 23. I was 23 years old, and I remember thinking because I did so damn well at the time flipping houses that I made a ton of money, and I thought that it was always going to be that easy to make money. Because I was so young and I had such success with and so I didn't save a damn penny. I spent every bit of it on just crap.
Sounds so familiar to me. I was 17 years old and spamming online and making hundreds of thousands of dollars profit, and again spent every single penny I got because it's easy. I can make 10, 20K in a day whenever I want.
Yeah, and it changes, right?
Yeah, you learn very, very quickly.
You were young too, man. So and I think with age comes experience, right? And And so, yeah, that's what happened was in 2007 when the real estate market in the United States kind of like just the bubble burst, and I went bankrupt, and it was awful. It was really bad. I was married at the time. It caused a divorce, all that kind of stuff, and it was awful because I look back and I saw how much money we made and how much money we wasted that could have set me up for many years to come had I just been a little bit more conservative with how I spent it. So. But I learned a lot of really valuable lessons from that, which I think is why this business has been so much more successful for me, because I know now not to take any success for granted.
For sure.
Cherish every bit of success that you have, and and never lose sight, never become complacent of your success, because if you do, you'll lose it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I like it. If you had to start over from scratch and get to $1,000 a month as fast as you possibly could from SEO specifically, which route would you take?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say one of two things. To get to $1,000 a month the fastest, I would start with local or lead gen.
Yeah.
Either local consulting services or lead gen, only because I can get results. Through my own experience, I get results faster through providing services or providing leads than through affiliate marketing. I'm doing a lot more affiliate marketing now than I used to. Here's the thing. When it comes to local and lead gen, I would say my number one, looking back through, because the bulk of my career has been spent in lead gen and local consulting. And looking back, the one thing that I would have done differently would be I would have focused in on one vertical, one industry, and I would have not done anything else. Literally, I would have stuck with one vertical, and I would have become the go-to guy in that vertical.
Would that be contractors, or would that be plumbing? Like, how specific?
Plumbing.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's, contractors is a very broad market.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Contractors can cover landscapers and roofers and plumbers and electricians and HVAC and all of that. And where I find it, I'm like most of our students, for example, that they come to us and they are wanting to start doing local services, and they want to do it, let's say, in their own backyard, so their own city or whatever, their own town, and they'll start targeting, accountants and plumbers and insurance agents and all this stuff. And every time you go after a new vertical, you have to start research all over. You got to start learning keywords. You got to start learning the vocabulary that they speak. You got to learn what the pain points are, where the demands are, where the holes are in the market that can be plugged, all that kind of stuff. And you have to start from scratch every time you start a new industry.
Definitely.
Even related industries like HVAC and plumbing, there's still two separate sets of keywords. So it's a different. You have to start from scratch every time, and that's what I did. And I was, and a lot of our students come to us with the same type of approach, and they say, I want to provide local marketing services in my city. Okay, that does make sense. I get why you want to do that, because it's local, it's comfortable, it's familiar, whatever. But the thing is why not just select one vertical, preferably that you have an interest in, and then expand your geographic area. So you might only be able to deal with one business in every city, but there's 30-some thousand cities in the United States. You're not going to run out of work. You know what I mean? But that way, once you've done the research once, you can use that same research over and over and over and over again. Once you've built website templates for that particular industry, you can use those same templates over and over and over again. You'll know which kind of links and which kind of sites to put links on. You'll know all of this stuff. You can become an expert in one particular vertical, and you can charge higher prices. And sooner or later, when you become an expert in one vertical, you can stop seeking work. Work will seek you. You know what I mean? Because people will, you'll become the authority in that industry.
Absolutely, man.
So the quickest way to $1,000, in my opinion, if you're doing local or lead gen, if that's your interest, would be to focus in on one particular vertical, guys. I'm telling you, that's the quickest way to scale, is one vertical. But if you're going to do affiliate marketing, or if that's an interest of yours, which I love affiliate marketing, I'm getting better at it because it's not something I did a whole lot of, but start building your email list. I know from, and I'm sure a lot of you, everybody says it's all on the list, the money's in the list, blah, blah, blah. And I heard that for years, and I ignored it. And now looking back at 2017, I wish to God I would have started building an email list back in 2010 when I got started. Because if so, I probably wouldn't be on this interview with you right now, because I'd be in Hawaii or something. So start building your email list, guys. It's an asset that it's an asset to your business. Start building an email list.
Very true. Bradley, thank you for joining me today. It's been really fun. Where can people find you if you want to check out your sites and reach out to you?
Well, I got a special offer for you guys. It's not a pitch. It's free. If anybody wants to find out more about who Semantic Mastery is and the stuff that we offer, we're giving away some freebie bonuses. It's just behind an opt-in page. So if you guys want to go to semanticmastery.com/lionzeal.
Got a custom page.
Then there's several bonuses there, guys. They're all free. Just opt in and you'll get them delivered to you on the thank you page or via email, whatever. Again, semanticmastery.com/lionzeal, and you can find out more information about us. And we also do a weekly webinar series via Google Hangouts. It's called Hump Day Hangouts. It's every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and it's Eastern U.S. time. And it's an hour that we give every single week. We actually did episode 133 yesterday, so we've been doing it for almost 3 years now. And you guys are more than welcome to attend that. It's free. We answer digital marketing and SEO questions, and that's every week at 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. And you can find that at semanticmastery.com/hump day, or you can just go to YouTube and search for Semantic Mastery, and you'll find us there. So
perfect, man. Thank you again for joining me. It's been really fun.
Awesome, Daryl. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you guys next week.